Welcome to the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Join us each week as we sit down with the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management and author of Your Fiscal Physical, Ryan Nelson. Tune in to gain valuable insights and practical tips as we simplify complex financial concepts into digestible lessons. From budgeting to retirement planning, this podcast is your go-to resource for mastering financial literacy.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Fiscal Physical Podcast. I am joined by Ryan Nelson, founder of Alchemy Wealth Management, one of my good friends, and an overall just savant in everything that he does. My words, not his. Ryan, what's on your agenda today, man? How are you?
My day's going well. I don't know that I'm a savant in all things, but it's been good. It's been good. What about you?
That's good. I appreciate it, man. Humility's key as well, so keep that in mind. You know, a slice of humble pie every once in a while is a good dessert. So, no, I'm having a good day, man. You know, I'm happy to be here. Happy to do some learning, as we always do with this. And thanks everybody for continuing to like, subscribe, check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Appreciate it. So. Ryan, today we are going to dive into always a fun one, retirement planning, mistakes, pitfalls. I don't know. These are kind of harsh words that we kind of throw around. So I don't want to say that things are, I think it was Bob Ross, the painter guy, who was like, oh, there's not mistakes. It's just happy accidents.
There you go.
I think that's what he says. And I think there's a point of that where I'm like, yes, that's true. And the other ones I'm like, I'll just call a spade here. So, but, you speak to... you have hundreds of clients and different, everyone coming from different backgrounds. You see probably all sorts of different, tales of how people get there. So today's topic is going to center around maybe retirement errors, mistakes, pitfalls, common things that you've seen along the way. Obviously, we won't get into the personal information specifically, but I'm curious what you can share to kind of the general public of tips or tricks or things to avoid maybe as they kind of someone gets into retirement planning or investing overall.
Well, let's do it. Let's dive into some retirement happy accidents.
Yeah.
So one, I would say the most common, I think, is just waiting too long to start saving. Mm-hmm. So people will wait until their 40s or 50s to start really seriously saving for retirement. And at that point, they've lost a couple decades of compounding growth. So that's I think the biggest one. I would say there's also so let's just number these. So let's say number one is waiting too long to start saving. Number two is assuming you choose when you'll retire. So more than half of retirees retire involuntarily. Mm-hmm. So meaning that a health issue retires them, a layoff, so a work retires them, or a family need at home retires them. So I talk to a lot of people. They have this they're grossly overconfident that they will pick their retirement date. And again, more than half of the population is basically some other factor determines when they retire, which I think is...
That's a big one. That's one I didn't really think about here, because in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm going to retire at 64, whatever. I can't even remember what the number is. And I'm like, absolutely, that's exactly when. But like I said, I don't have a lot of control over that in certain things. There's a lot of factors that play in that I really don't have any control over. Like I could get in a car accident, God forbid, or whatever, and like I'm like, oh well, now I'm retired, kind of thing. So yeah, that's a good one that I didn't really consider when I was thinking about this.
Yeah, number three, we'll say not having a written plan. So it sounds silly and a little facetious, but like hoping your portfolio grows isn't a plan. Right. And and so you need clear targets, savings rates, and regular reviews. So really there should be a written plan there for what you're trying to accomplish. Number four, ignoring Social Security. So a lot of people just assume, or, they say, oh, Social Security won't be there, when I retire. And so they just assume they're going to get $0 for Social Security. And there's actually some strategy for deciding when you're going to be taking Social Security, and maybe when you do Roth conversions, or how much you should have put in Roth versus traditional IRA. And so while it is sort of a conservative approach to say, yeah, let's assume I get nothing for Social Security, if the reality is you're going to get something for Social Security, then we want to be planning for that, because it could change and affect other aspects of our plan, right? So people being sort of bearish or negative towards Social Security and just choosing to completely ignore it in their plan, I see semi sets people up for some shortcomings.
Sure, and I think that we've covered a lot or several of these topics on previous episodes as well too. So I really think the Social Security one that we did was really eye-opening for myself. I can't remember what episode it was, but go back, check it out. I think it was named Social Security. We broke down some of the common like myths or things that were related to Social Security as best we could. Definitely go back and check that out, because as we're going through these, I'm like, yeah, we got a lot of overlap on previous episodes that are really good touch points for sure.
Yeah. And let's do a quick little quiz here.
Sure.
If you were to have, let's say you had $1 million, you're nearing retirement, you had $1 million in your 401k and a $600,000 house.
Okay.
What would you say your net worth is?
I would say it's $1 million would be my net worth.
Yeah. So, so your true net worth would be, in this case, $1.6 million, right?
Sure.
Would be all of your, assuming you don't owe anything on the house, you'd be your total assets, in this case, $1.6 million, minus your liabilities, $0 in this case, so it would be $1.6 million. To your point, we've talked in previous episodes, a lot of retirement planners often think about your investable assets as more of your right? If we're talking about this from a retirement planning standpoint, it's like, well, you're always going to need a house over your head. That's $600,000. It might be hard to access. Maybe we actually think about retirement planning with $1 million, right? I figured you would say that. I was setting you up for failure.
Oh, man, classic.
So, yeah.
And bamboozled again.
Yeah. So my next point is forgetting about taxes.
Right.
And so, again, technically, everything you said was right. $1.6 million is your actual net worth. We could conceptualize it by saying, oh, we have $1 million of investable net worth. Let's think about that. But if you have $1 million in a 401k, some of that money is like earmarked for the IRS. So we say our net worth is $1 million, but the reality is you owe taxes on every single penny of that $1 million. You can't go spend $1 million.
Right.
You have $1 million in an account. If you take all $1 million out, a large portion of that's going to the IRS. You can spend some amount less than $1 million, right? So it's funny, if you own $1 million house and you own $400,000 to the bank, we would say, oh, you only have $600,000 of equity. Your net worth there is $600,000. But for some reason in a 401k, we say if you have $1 million in a 401k and you owe $200,000, like quote unquote you're going to owe $200,000 to the IRS. We still say you have $1 million.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
Why?
Great
right.
Point. Yeah.
It's an interesting little conundrum.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is we don't know how much you're going to pay, and we're going to over time strategically plan to try to get the amount you pay lower and lower. Right. But the reality is, like, forgetting about that taxes can be a big one. And so either putting too much or pulling too much from tax deferred accounts can spike that tax bill. So again, just a shortcoming. You want to diversify across those Roth, traditional, and taxable accounts so you can stay flexible in the future. But just forgetting about taxes in general, I think, can be
huge.
Big shortcoming. And then underestimating how long you'll live. So like longevity risk is a real risk, right? And I think people, if you look statistically, a lot of people underestimate how long they'll live. If you go look at these, like, what are they called? Mortality tables, or is that the right word? But
anyway, I think so. Yeah.
From like these insurance companies, they have a lot of data predicting how long you'll, like, from a certain age, what age you'll live to. And it's interesting that a lot of people think that, if you go ask a random person how long will you live, and then look at the mortality tables, very likely they're underestimating how long they'll actually live for.
Interesting.
So interesting, yeah. So let's talk about these. Let's kind of sum these mistakes up, like, by decade. So if your 20s and 30s, very potentially the most common mistake you're going to be making in your 20s and 30s is not starting, right? So not saving early enough, right? What I already talked about, ignoring the employer matches on your 401k, right? So again, if you're in your 20s and 30s and you're looking for, hey, what sort of mistake am I most likely to be making? I'd say probably just not starting. So if you're in your 20s or 30s, to avoid that mistake, let's start.
Let's get it going.
If you're in your 40s, the most likely mistake you're going to make, I would say, is lifestyle creep. So letting expenses, letting your house, your car, your kids' expenses, all of that can kind of just creep up on you. And all of a sudden you start spending more than maybe you should be, right? So in your 40s, that's probably the most common mistake, and you should be on the lookout for. In your 50s, the most common mistake to look out for is probably like sort of panicking. So you start aggressively saving for retirement. Maybe you already fell into this mistake where you weren't saving in your 20s and 30s. You had a little bit of lifestyle creep in your 40s. Now you're like, man, I'm in my 50s. Holy cow, retirement's coming up. I maybe procrastinated a little bit on this. I need to aggressively catch up, right? And so sometimes people will take too much risk in their portfolios to try to sort of catch up, right? And another, this is a kind of 2-for-1. So 50s would be panicking and being too aggressive, or failing to plan for healthcare expenses. So if you have planned ahead, if you haven't planned ahead, panicking, saying, oh my God, I'm behind, or if you have planned ahead and you said, no, I didn't fall into the mistake in my 20s and 30s. I started saving. I'm going to actually retire young. I'm going to retire in my 50s. Oftentimes we plan to think about healthcare costs along the way. And, if you saved a lot of your money into 401ks and stuff, you might not be able to touch that money until you're 59 and a half. You may not have the pool of funds necessary to you may have enough money to retire early, but not in the appropriate types of accounts.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah, for sure.
And then in your 60s, I would say taking Social Security too early. So not having a definitive strategy for when to take Social Security and knowing that, hey, I can take it at age 62 or something, ignoring some of the tax efficient withdrawals and taking Social Security too early. Yeah. Any questions around the time?
No, these are great. I really liked how you broke it down by decade as well too, because that's kind of, thinking about, oh yeah, these are things over the lifetime, and you're like, well, like what strategy? Because immediately I think like, all right, where am I at here? I'm mid-30s. What can I do to, what steps can I take right now to ensure that I don't end up panicking in my 50s, or like thinking about, I need the healthcare piece of it is huge. Like as you get older, you're probably going to have more health problems. That's just the way things go. So just thinking about those things and the idea of like, oh my gosh, 50, 60 seems so far away. And then in reality, you're like, I think it was the other day I was like, somebody mentioned that we're closer to 2050 than we are 2000 right now. And I was just like, holy smokes. Like in 2050, like I'll be 60 years old. Like, wow. And I was like, okay, all right. Like that really kind of put it into perspective. So I think seeing these by decades, like you're like, it's really not that far off. It's going to be here before we can, before we maybe want it to be, but it's still going to come up. So I think that this breakdown was really, really great here. Good. For sure.
Cool. So let's hit a couple other quick fire like lessons or lesser known pitfalls. So one I already I sort of alluded to, right, is not using brokerage accounts to bridge an early retirement. So you need some flexible money. If you're going to retire early before age 59 and a half, you need some flexible money there. A brokerage account, if planning ahead of time, can be a great tool for that. Another, failing to rebalance portfolios. So I'll see a lot of times somebody will have a ton of, say, Apple stock. They bought Apple. It did really, really well. So it kept growing and growing and growing, but now it maybe comprises 80% of their portfolio. You're taking too much risk, right? You're not diversified enough. So failing to rebalance your portfolio and sort of letting these winners just continue to run up unchecked can set you up for some unintentional risk. And then neglecting, I alluded to this earlier too, but neglecting insurance. So, a health event can derail your financial plan just as fast as a market downturn can. So making sure you're properly insured in basically not just health, but like all aspects of life, right? Making sure you have the right home insurance, making sure you have the right health insurance, making sure you have the right car insurance. You don't want to be overinsured because that takes away from right how much you can save. But you also don't want to be underinsured because then any single event could potentially derail your retirement as well. So making sure you have the right balance of insurance. So working with a good insurance professional there. Yeah,
that balancing piece is interesting too, because you mentioned like, you may have hit a winner like earlier or something like that, or you're in something where you've, done well, but that might be 80, 90% and you're approaching retirement. You're like, okay, should I, what happens if this company crashes or whatever? And it's like, okay, maybe I start converting some of these things to more safe bonds at this point, or like whatever. Speak to their financial advisor, figure out the best path for you. But I think the rebalancing piece of it is huge, which we also do an episode on rebalancing too.
Yeah, we have.
I think that's a big piece that maybe people don't consider when something's doing really well. They just kind of ride that, which is great, but is it in the long run what you actually, is it in everybody's best interest there for sure? So, awesome, Ryan. Well, I really appreciate you breaking this down here. Like I said, I think this was a great episode to really kind of harken back to some of the other things that we've spoken about on this podcast. Go back, check those out. Anything that kind of, rang true for you guys. Odds are we've done one or we're going to do a podcast on it for sure, but definitely let us know if there's anything out there you guys want us to touch more on. Anything else you want to say on this, Ryan, before we pause?
No, let's move into the personal section.
All right, let's do it.
And now, to put the personal in personal finance.
Welcome back to this side of the Fiscal Physical. We are in the personal section, and Ryan, I got this question because I was thinking about, I'll just ask the question first, and I'll tell you. So, I'm curious: do you collect anything? Would you consider yourself a collector of certain objects? Maybe now, over time, whatever. Whenever I think about this, we have a friend named Vinny, who's he's your friend, my friend. I guess he's our friend.
Yeah. Of course.
No, he's a great guy. We've actually shouted him out before on the podcast too. He listens every week. But I remember when I first moved to Reno, I was talking to Vinny, and he mentioned that he collects $2 bills. Like that was one of the things that he just like collects, and I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, I got like a couple hundred $2 bills. I was like, that's kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
I've always thought $2 bills are cool too. Yeah, he's got a nice little collection.
Yeah, he had a nice little collection there, and I don't know if he still has them or if he sold them or whatever. But I should probably ask him. But anyway, it got me thinking. So I'm curious if you have anything that you collected or still collect throughout the time.
Yeah, not really from collectibles. Like as a kid, I had a couple collections, I guess. So a coin collection, like the quarters, coins, all that fun stuff. With shell collection, rock collection. Not sure what I did with it. Just put it into a box. I don't know. I got
a cool rock here.
Baseball card collection. So I had baseball cards and stuff growing up. Now I have a couple of football cards, but really I have a total of like 10 football cards, so it's hard to call that a collection.
Sure.
So I can't think of anything I really collect now. A couple of things as a kid, but what about you? What do you collect?
Yeah, I just collect debt, it seems.
There you go. Nice.
No, but growing up, I didn't really collect a lot of things. I remember collecting these like candy jars that it was like my favorite candy growing up, and like they've since discontinued it, and I was like thinking about it the other day, and I was like, do they still make those? I looked, they don't, but I was like, oh, that would have been a nice collectible. I had like 100 cans of these like little candy tart things that I was like just weird that I had like stacked on my shelf in my room, so I was like, that's weird. But I also used to collect state quarters. I don't know if you remember when those came out. I got like a board, and it had like a hole for each state, and so I'd try to find like organically. I'd try to find like those like quarters. Don't know ever what happened to it. I had like I guess like $10 or whatever there. But I really liked that. I thought that was super cool when they came out with those. But nothing really like nowadays. I don't know. I don't. And it's funny because like I got a under 2 kid at home, and he's starting to collect things. He just is like, cool, like I'm gonna put these all I got together. Put these all in the same pile, and this is my pile for it.
Nice.
I'm like looking, I'm just like, it's funny, like he's just collecting stuffed animals right in that pile, and so it's kind of funny to see like I wonder what he's going to end up collecting. But for myself, I'm just like, nah, I don't have space for things anymore.
Yeah.
But
nice.
It's kind of interesting thing to see. But awesome, Ryan. Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully, everybody else out there, hopefully you're just collecting money in your Roth IRAs. That's out there. So that's the goal there, or whatever.
I'd be curious to know the most unique collection.
Yeah, me too. I'd be really curious to see like any of our listeners out there. If you guys have what's your most unique thing that you've collected or you're currently collecting, let us know. We'd really be curious. This will see if anybody's actually engaged with this podcast. So we'll find out. But appreciate everybody. Appreciate all the listeners. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts. We love it. Love you guys. And Ryan, anything else to end us, my man?
As always, stay the course.
Thank you for joining us for the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Until next time, happy listening, and as always, stay the course. If you have a question or topic suggestions, please email us at podcast@alchemywealth.com. If you enjoyed today's discussion, subscribe to the podcast to ensure you never miss an episode, and consider leaving us a rating and review on your favorite platform. This helps other listeners like you find the show. For more resources, you can visit Alchemy Wealth Management's website at www.alchemywealth.com or find your Fiscal Physical, the book, on Amazon. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention that personal finance is just that, personal. Please don't take anything we say as advice. The preceding content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not an offer or a solicitation, nor should it be construed or relied upon for tax, legal, or investment advice. It doesn't consider your personal financial situation or objectives and may not be suitable for you.